everyone. Welcome to Library Storytime. So glad you could join me today. I'm very glad you're here because today's Storytime is a very special storytime to me. It's celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, we're celebrating Dr. King's birthday on we just celebrated it yesterday. It was an official holiday Monday. But Dr. King's real birthday was January 15th. He was born January 15th, 1929, which would make him 92 years old. But sadly, Dr. King is not with us. He passed away, or he died in 1968, but we still remember him, and we remember all the great work that Dr. King did, and now he has left that work for us to do. And so the more we learn about Dr. King, the more we can go out into the world and do the things that Dr. King wished for all people. And so thank you for joining me. Our craft this week, please come to the Reader's Theater and pick it up. It's going to be a Dr. King mobile. Have two plates that are already hooked together. And it'll look like this when you come to pick up your packet. It'll have this already together. But then inside your packet, you will have pictures to glue on. You'll have some sparkly things, some hearts. And it says, and here's a dove that you can, I'll give you some little tissue paper that you can kind of scrunch up and make a dove. A dove stands for peace. So Dr. King said, you can settle your arguments peacefully. And so a dove is a symbol of peace. And on the other side says, happy birthday, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And you can decorate that with sparkly sequins. And then some children all together with hearts and love. Because that's how we can celebrate Dr. King, is by being friends with everyone and treating everyone fairly. And so this will be your craft. It'll be a nice Dr. King mobile. And so that'll be for you to pick up at the Reader's Theater. So come on in and pick it up. And yes, today we are going to celebrate Dr. King. And one of my favorite books is by Jean Marzolo. It's Happy Birthday, Martin Luther King. And in this book, we'll learn about Dr. King. Thank you for joining me. So let's get started. Here's our big book today. Happy Birthday, Martin Luther King by Jean Marzolo. Big books are fun. They have nice big pictures, so I hope you can see. It says Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. His parents loved him very much. Martin Luther King had the same name as his father, except for one thing. His father was called Martin Luther King Sr., and so Martin was called Martin Luther King Jr. Martin went to elementary school, high school, and college in Atlanta, Georgia. He was a good student, and later he went to divinity school in Pennsylvania. Divinity school means he went to learn to become a minister or a pastor of a church. Martin became a pastor, just like his dad, at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. They were both called reverends. So there was the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr., that would be his dad, and then there was the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., that's Dr. King. Martin's job as a minister was to help people in need. He visited sick people in the hospital, and that made them feel better. He asked people not to fight with each other. He said that there were peaceful ways to solve problems. And he led people in songs and prayer. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is famous because he helped our country change some of its laws. A law is like a rule. Now let's look at some of these laws. There were some laws, this was a while back, there was a law in some places that said that only white people could sit in the front of a bus and that black people had to sit in the back. Well, that is not a fair and just law, and so Martin Luther King said this law needed to be changed. Rosa Parks and other people helped him change it, and now people can sit in any empty seat they want. So when you get on the T-bus, you can sit anywhere you want. Let's look at another law. There once was a law in some places that said that African Americans could use only certain restaurants and drinking fountains. That is not a fair and just law, and Dr. King and many other people helped change these laws. Now, all people can share the same restaurants and drink out the same water fountain. Once, there was a law in some places that said that black children and white children couldn't go to school together. That is not a fair and just law. Martin Luther King and other people, including many brave children, helped to change this law. And now children can all go to school together, no matter what color or race. They can all go to school together, and that just makes it so wonderful. So we thank Dr. King for that. Martin Luther King had a special talent for leadership. That means when he spoke, people listened. Poor people, rich people, white people, black people, people from all over the world listened when Martin Luther King spoke. Many helped him work, march, sing, and pray for justice. Justice is another word for freedom, for being fair, treating people the same. In the summer of 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. gave the most famous speech of his life. He gave it outdoors to 250,000 people who had come to Washington, D.C. to ask the president for jobs and freedom for black people. In his speech, Martin Luther King said that he had a dream, and in his dream, it was that people everywhere would learn to live together without being mean to one another and to be free. Now, sadly, Dr. King passed away in 1968. If you ever get a chance to go to Atlanta, Georgia, please go to the King Center. And there you'll be able to see where Dr. King is laid to rest. And it looks just like this because I've been there. It's a beautiful place. You'll want to go. And this says, this is Dr. King's tomb. It says Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., 1929, that's when he was born, and to 1968, and that's when he died. And on the tomb, it says, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Martin Luther King wanted people to be able to go places together, to share food together, love one another in peace, Because he worked so hard for freedom and helped so many people gain it, we honor him every year on his special day. We call this day Martin Luther King Day, and we say to him, Happy birthday, Martin Luther King. Happy birthday, Dr. King. And Dr. King and many other brave people marched for freedom. So Jacqueline Woodson, who is a very famous children's author, has written a song, and it goes like this, to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Freedom, freedom, let it ring, said Dr. King. Let us live in harmony, peace and love for you and me. Freedom, freedom, let it ring, said Dr. King. Freedom means that all people can enjoy the liberties and the freedoms that we have in our country, can go anywhere, eat anywhere, go to school anywhere. So that's what we mean by freedom. Let's sing it one more time. Freedom, freedom, let it ring, said Dr. King. Let us live in harmony, peace and love for you and me. Freedom, freedom, let it ring, said Dr. King. And we want to say thank you, Dr. King, for helping us all learn to live in peace and harmony. And so we had in that book where people gathered in Washington, D.C. to march. And our next book is by Sean W. Evans called We March. And it's about a family that's getting up early and traveling to Washington, D.C. to march. And when people gather and march, other people listen. And so it's important to join together and march for what you think is right. The morning is quiet. The sun rises. And we prepare. We prepare to march. We pray for strength. And we work together. Many times when people march, they make signs. This one says, we want freedom. We want freedom to be able to get a good job. We want freedom to be able to live in a nice house. Freedom. We came from all over to march. We can tell this is Washington, D.C. There's the monument there. So they came by bus, they came by car, they even walked to Washington, D.C. to march. We follow our leaders. Here's a picture of Dr. King, and he and other leaders are leading the march. We walk together. We sing. We are hot and tired, but we are filled with hope. And then they heard Dr. King give his very famous speech, I have a dream. We lean on each other. It says, stop all injustice. Equal rights now. As we march to justice, here's the Lincoln Memorial. Here's all the people that marched. Many people marched. And then march to freedom and to our dreams. And there's Dr. King. He gave the very famous speech, I have a dream. And we march for freedom. I thought that was a very nice book to help us remember about the March on Washington, 1963, with Dr. King. So we march. Well, let's look at a fun little flannel. Something to Crow About by Megan Halsey Lane. Being different. Sometimes it's hard to be different, but in this book, Cassie and Randall discover, hey, being different is okay. It's okay to be different. And in fact, it's nice. It makes the world a better place when we all live together in peace. But Randall and Cassie, they kind of fuss for a little bit. So let's begin. I'll show you Randall and Cassie. They were two little chicks that lived on the farm. Here's our barn. And here is the little chicks. Here is Cassie. And here is Randall. They were two little chicks on the farm. Now, it seemed that Cassie did everything better than Randall. Why, she could scratch better than Randall. She could strut better than Randall. She could cheep better than Randall. She could even find worms better than Randall. Randall said, oh, I wish I could just do one thing better than Cassie. Well, as time passed, the chickens grew up. And one day, well, let's see them grown up. Here's Randall, very handsome rooster. And here's Cassie, a very lovely hen. They were still friends, but Randall just wished he could still do something better than Cassie. Well, one day, Cassie discovered that she could lay an egg. Oh, Randall thought that was wonderful. Randall said, oh, I want to lay an egg too. And so Randall tried to lay an egg. But Cassie said, silly, boys can't lay eggs. And that made Randall mad. He was so mad, he let out a very loud cock-a-doodle-doo. Cassie had never heard such a more wonderful sound than that. Cassie said, Randall, that's wonderful. I want a cock-a-doodle-doo too. And so Cassie tried, but she tried, but all Cassie could do was go beep, 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 beep. She couldn't crow like Randall. And so Randall said, Cassie, how about this? I'll cock-a-doodle-doo, and you can lay eggs. And that's when Cassie and Randall learned that being different was really a good thing. It was really something to crow about. Cock-a-doodle-doo, being different was okay. It's okay to be different. And Randall and Cassie discovered that too. And that's the story of Something to Crow About. Well, thank you for watching Library Storytime. Like I said, today was very special story time. We want to celebrate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we can make the world a better place too. And how can we do that? We know there's problems in the world, but each one of us can do our part to be fair and kind to all people. And that's what this book is about. What a wonderful world. Yes, it's a wonderful world we live in, and we can make it even better. So this song became very famous with Louis Armstrong. He's a very famous singer. So if you want to look him up on YouTube, you can hear him sing. It's a Wonderful World. We'll sing it together, but he certainly does an excellent job. But what a wonderful world. This is by George David Weiss and Bob Teal. What a wonderful world. And you'll see some beautiful pictures, and we can sing along. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Here's how the song goes. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright, blessed day, the dark, sacred nights. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Thank you so much. You did an excellent job. Thank you for joining me today for Library Storytime. And don't forget to come and pick up your craft so that you can remember Dr. King and all of his wonderful work, and we can follow his dream. And so, thank you, and have a lovely rest of your day. See you next week. Bye-bye.